15 vegetables that handle 100-degree plus heat. Phoenix, Arizona summers are absolutely brutal. It's March 25th. I'm standing here in the shade and it's already 100 degrees. If you're going to start planting things in Phoenix, you have to get started now. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the seeds and transplants that I'm putting in my garden and some of the techniques I'm going to use to make myself have a successful summer garden here in Phoenix. Now, let's talk about seeds. Right here are all the seeds that I'm going to be planting for the summer season in Phoenix, Arizona. Each of these do pretty well in our summer heat. The first one is going to be basil. I collected these seeds over the last couple seasons and they do very, very well in the heat and bees seem to like them. Of course, if the seeds don't take, and I can always go to Sprouts and just grab a basil plant there. The next one that I'm going to be planting is actually Malabar spinach. I have some from the packet and I have some from seeds I've grown in the past years. Malabar spinach is a fun one. It's got a red vine to it and the leaves are a little bit thicker and a little bit gelatinous, almost like okra. They're edible. It looks cool, so why not grow it because it does well in the heat. The next one is going to be cowpeas or black-eyed peas. Clearly, I've got a lot of these and there's a reason for that. What I'm going to be using these for is ground cover. Ground cover is going to help keep the soil moist. It's going to add some nitrogen in because they're beans. And then when fall rolls around for our big growing seasons, that's when we're going to be able to use it again. The next one, nothing reminds me more of summer than sunflowers. So sunflowers are going in my garden. And as an added bonus, you can eat them and the bees like them. The next thing that we're going to be planting is summer squash. This is yellow crookneck squash. And these do okay. They're gonna die out once it starts to get hot, but I'm hoping to get them in a little bit before summer. The next one is okra. I'm gonna have two different varieties of this. The other one's a Clemson spineless. This is a red burgundy. Okra is made for the heat. They grow extremely well, produce extremely well, and it's one of those things that you feel like you're accomplishing something when you get to eat something in the summer here. We've got Armenian cucumbers. I've also transplanted these, but they don't seem to do as well for transplant, so we're using the seeds instead as well as a backup. The next one that we're going to use is Loofah. This is my first time growing Loofah, so we're going to have to see how it goes, but I've created a giant archway. They're going to crawl over it. They've got 30-foot vines, and you know what? At the end of the day, you can actually shower with them, so that's not a bad deal. These all are heat-tolerant plants that can mostly handle our intense summer heat if they get established quickly. I also had some transplants that I put in a couple of weeks ago. The first transplant is Armenian cucumbers, and like we said, these usually do better from seed, but I wanted to try them from transplant as well. The second transplant we have are Santa Fe chilies. Now these aren't as hot as a jalapeno, but they do have more spice than say a sweet pepper. I enjoy them, and we're going to be growing them because they do well in the heat. The third thing we're going to be growing are Black Beauty eggplants. And full disclosure, this is the first time I've grown these as well, so I don't know how they're going to do. My friends say that they do well in Phoenix, so let's give it a shot. The fourth thing we're going to grow is similar to a tomato, but it's called a Tomatillo. They are amazing for making green salsa, and I'm really excited to grow this one. The fifth and sixth thing that we have are Greek oregano and marjoram, and they're herbs that are a little bit more heat tolerant. I like them because I like to cook, and we'll have those growing as well. And they should probably die out sometime during the summer. I've also planted some tomato plants. These typically won't produce once it gets too hot because the pollen in the flowers just isn't viable. However, we try and get them in and get a little bit of a crop before summer hits, try and help them survive through summer, and then usually in fall they do very well. And then we have one of my absolute favorites, sweet potatoes. These things can absolutely take over a garden and do very well in the summer heat. Since these guys are already growing, they should have a better chance of getting established and thriving in the garden before the intense summer heat comes. So now that we've talked about what to plant, it's really, really important that you get your irrigation system dialed in. I don't care what kind of watering system you're using, but you want to make sure that whatever watering system you are using is actually working. Because if you try and do this in Phoenix without water, you're going to do really poorly. So one of the last things we need to talk about is shade. You don't have to use it, but it will help. I'm here sitting in the shade because it's a ton cooler than sitting in the sunlight. The same thing's true for your plants. Shade can be created several different ways. One is just by using nature itself. You can use one plant to shade another. The other way is you just buy yourself some shade cloth. Ultimately, the choice is up to you, what you want to do. For me, I typically don't use shade in my garden. If there is shade cast, it's from one plant to another. Somebody asked me one time for a rule of thumb on what plants need shade. Well, the biggest broad generalization I can come up with is if the leaves are small, waxy, or thick, they don't need shade quite as much as leaves that are thin, broad, and look fragile. I hope that helps you with your shading. Having a vegetable garden in hot climates can be an absolute challenge, but it can also be quite rewarding. In Phoenix, we have 7 months where the temperatures can reach 100 degrees. So to combat that, you have to start early. You have to get your seeds in. You have to get your transplants in. And you got to make sure that your irrigation system is working. And if you want to, add some shade. I wish you nothing but gardening success. And if you liked this video, please subscribe. Thank you.